Hello, my name is Carol Campbell and I'm the wife of the late painter Steven Campbell, but I'm here today in my capacity as the director of the Steven Campbell Trust. The Trust was set up following Steven's death in 2007 to promote his legacy within the arts, but also to continue with a cause which was very close to his heart, which was art education for young adults. And to that end, I'm going to be joined today by Paul Simmons and Alistair Macaulay of the world-renowned design duo Timorous Beasties, whose studio I'm sitting in today. They've made some time in their very busy schedule and agreed to be interviewed by two Hindland Secondary pupils, Esther and Charlotte, with the questions which you have put forward. So, enjoy.
Hi, I'm Charlotte from Hindland Secondary School and I'm here with Paul from Timorous Beasties, and I'm going to be asking him some questions sent in by students throughout Glasgow. So why the name Timorous Beasties?
The name Timorous Beasties comes from the Robert Burns poem. But actually, I guess looking back at it, we quite liked not being pigeonholed too much. We could have had my second name's Simmons, so it could have been, Simmons and Macaulay, whatever. And I guess the great thing with the name Timorous Beasties is that it kind of has a contrast in it. So they got the timorous, which is the kind of from timid, I guess, and then the beasties. But the beasties does refer to, a lot of the work that we did at the very beginning, and still do actually, has quite a lot of beasties, creepy crawlies in the actual work. So it's got a kind of slight kind of double take on it.
How many people do you employ and what roles are there?
So we employ, and I'm going to just say roughly 20, maybe a bit more. I kind of think, for all my studies and, degrees and whatever, we rarely look for qualifications. I think the most important thing as a person is to be passionate and to be adaptable.
Has your childhood inspired any of your designs at all?
Who knows? My background, as a kid, I did always like nature. Actually, my parents were quite different from me in that they weren't, creativity is a different subject altogether. I think anyone can be creative, whether it's with writing or science or whatever it is, but certainly the route I take was more, I guess, arty in that kind of sense. But I kind of what was quite nice was that I always knew that I wanted to do art, and so I kind of didn't ignore everything else, but I kind of focused. I had a kind of focus that I just really wanted to do that.
What influence does being based in Glasgow have on your designs?
Yeah, I think, inspiration, for most things is not something that you ever kind of think about, but it's something that you kind of look back on and you kind of go, oh God, right, okay, that's where, that's kind of come from. But certainly, you can't avoid the fact that because we do these designs based on these old textiles called toiles, originally Irish, but sort of developed in France. And we are kind of known, or we kind of became more known when we did the Glasgow toile, which was the first toile that we produced.
When did you start your business?
So our business started in 1990, really. It's quite an easy year to remember. It's nice and even. It's the beginning of a decade. And it was really when Actually, quite a lot of things started to kind of happen in the early 90s. There was quite a big kind of push in terms of music and art and all these sort of things. And it was when, certainly, this is maybe more so in London, but also actually to a certain extent in Glasgow. There was lots of space, there's lots of empty buildings and things to sort of, it was easier for people to kind of get going in that respect.
What do you consider makes your work different from others?
What makes our work different? I mean, that's a good question. It's, I think to a certain extent is sticking with what you really love doing. What actually makes the work different, I don't really know. But then, it's something that you kind of look at from the outside in. So I think it's important to always kind of do what you feel passionate about, and then that automatically will make things different.
Hi, my name is Esther. I'm here from Glasgow Secondary School with Alistair from Timorous Beasties to ask him a few questions. How long does it take to make a design?
Well, that's quite a difficult thing to answer, actually, because as designers, you will sometimes be confronted with a brief from a client, which will have time constraints just because you can't be allowed to take as long as you would like to. So it's a very variable piece. Some of our designs, talking about the stuff that we have in our own studio, can be anything from within a day to years, depending how you want to reference your images. And sometimes a design will inform you of something you want to maybe do in the future. So our designs are actually always quite labour intensive just because of the way we work and the style of some of the drawings. Just by the look of them, you can tell that there's a lot of work being put into them.
Do you have a favourite Timorous Beasties design?
There's a marble gum, a really brightly coloured one, which I've always really liked. We don't sell much of it, but I really like it because it's quite irreverent, but it's really stylish and the colours are fantastic. Sometimes your favourite design is the one you've just done because it's been a culmination of lots of different ideas. I suppose equally it could be your most hated one if none of those ideas actually worked the way you wanted them to. But it's not as straightforward as that. Because your ideas keep changing, your process changes, and how you reflect upon your design also changes. So there are some constants, the ones I just mentioned, but in general it can be very exciting. You see, when something different happens and something new comes into the collection, that can be your favourite design.
Tell us about your design process from initial inspiration to final product.
The inspiration can come from many different places. It can just be from thoughts that you've had from way back that you've thought at some point I will do something with this, either a drawing or an idea that you've retained somewhere in a sketchbook, and you get a chance to develop it later on. We're very lucky in our studio that we can reference things that we have thought about or drawn years beforehand. We don't have what could be considered a boss, I suppose, that would say you must do things based on whatever. So we can develop designs as in how you feel. And sometimes if you've not gone quite far enough with a design, you take that onto your next idea. But that result, that culmination of the process, is a fantastic thing. It's if you ever do screen printing, because screen printing was the only thing that was available to us when we started. If it was a 7 or 8 colour print, for example, you'd already done the design, you'd done the separations, you'd done the screens, and you printed your first colour, and it looks like nothing. Second colour, it's starting to build up. Third, and it's not until you take off the last screen, and that could be 7th or 8th or 9th screen, that the design reveals itself how it should. In that particular moment, can make it or break it, of course, because that's what you're leading towards. That's why you have to have the process in mind from when you start, because it will inevitably be a surprise, not necessarily a good surprise, but that's your end point. So when you lift that screen for that final moment, it's a brilliant feeling.
What advice would you give to young people who are wanting to work in the creative industry?
My advice to young people wanting to come into this business, I suppose, would be to to stay creative, of course. Always, that's the key, that's the absolute core. Everything else floats around that. Having work experience is really important. A lot of the people that have worked for us or currently work for us have all originally been work experience. So that's like a 6-week or a 6-month interview, really. And we've had hundreds, possibly thousands, over the 30 odd years of people come to work for us. I remember a very small portion of them. But what I've noticed over that period is it's actually quite straightforward to stand out over that period. And you can be standing out for very simple things. A creative mind is a great thing to have, but being able to apply it is what it actually needs. You don't want to be sitting in a shed being creative and it doesn't go anywhere. No one ever sees it. I suppose it's an awareness of the bigger and the better world outside.